Hello and a very good afternoon. Uh, my name is Harish Shekhar and I happen to be one of the technical evangelists for the AD Solutions team here at Manage Engine. A very good afternoon once again, and for people joining in from the West Coast, a very good morning too. Uh, so the topic for today is a comprehensive approach to manage Office 365 user lifecycle with Active Directory as its base. So before we get started, quick housekeeping stuff. This webinar is being recorded, and of course, I would be sharing it to you once the video has been trimmed and shaped accordingly. So feel free, in case if you'd want this video to educate any of your colleagues or your team members, just drop in a line. I would be sharing my email address too. You could write to me, and I would be more than happy to share this video. And of course, I would be very happy to share this slide deck as well, so that I let you enjoy this webinar. And this is something that I have tailor-made over the years, spending time with admins across the globe. We do a lot of seminars, webinars, workshops, and these were gathered from the requests that we have received over the years. And the second one is I do have one of my colleagues helping me with the question and answers, so feel free to write your questions, and I would make sure that you get it answered as soon as possible. If not, we would trace it back and send you an email. But the best thing that I would recommend is just drop a line or two to my email. That's Harry@ManageEngine. I would be sharing it to you anyways. Just drop a line about your environment, and we would be more than happy to get on a call and understand your requirement. So without further ado, let's jump into today's webinar. And more often than not, this happens to be the widely deployed architecture. In so-called the sugar-coated terms, that's the hybrid version. You've got Active Directory on-premise, and that's been around for so many years, and that's been a creditable flagship model of Microsoft. And now admins across the globe want the Active Directory to be enticed with the cloud offerings. Today, 1 out of every 5 corporate employees uses an Office 365 cloud service. And in the last 2 years, Office 365 has eclipsed all over other cloud providers to emerge as the most widely used enterprise cloud service by user count. And of course, this was picked from an article and Sky High Networks, and they happen to be a vendor which will look into the cloud services, and this was picked from one of their articles. I would definitely share this link as well. So the reason for integrating your on-premise with Azure AD or be it Office 365 makes users more productive by providing a common identity for accessing both cloud and on-premise resources. And users and organization can take advantage of the following. When I say the following, they have a single identity to access on-premise application and cloud services such as Office 365, and then a single tool to provide easy deployment experience. So it's just one identity but different platforms. How are you going to bring both together? So that's the concept of this webinar. I would be giving you a general do's and don'ts, and that is what would follow on the next slide, where I will be talking about the agenda. There's strictly no strict agenda followed here. It's just a session where we all could learn something new. That's the whole idea about this webinar. And the first topic that I would be touching is the native user onboarding techniques and their limitations, be it on the on-premise Active Directory, followed by the Office 365, the native method, and then the native license management, then the password rules and conditions available on both the platforms, and deprovisioning process and limitations. And last but not the least, how could all these problems be solved using the AD 360 solution from Manage Engine, which is beyond and above all the limitations which I would be showcasing. So when I touch base about the onboarding piece, I would be giving you a bit of caution on the modification as well. So I would give you a 360 degree of a user lifecycle. This is just not only on-premise Active Directory. I would be giving it to you on the Office 365 environment too. I would be giving it to you as it is available as on date. So let's get started. The first topic is native user onboarding techniques. Of course, this is something that everybody would have seen over the years. Microsoft provisioning Active Directory users in the on-premise Active Directory, user provisioning the user account, managing user account, and deprovisioning user account. The onboarding part in the native on-premise Active Directory is a four-step process, as you all would be knowing, where you create a user with their first name, last name, or full name, or user principal name, and then you move into the next segment of typing the password. So typing the name, the password is the second step, and you create, and the user gets created, and after which is when you could get your hands on to the properties, which is where you are inscribing information onto every single key attributes in Active Directory pertaining the user, which can only occur after the user has been created. Okay, this is the native single user onboarding experience that I'm talking about right now. Of course, when you talk to Microsoft about the bulk user provisioning, there is definitely an answer, and that's called PowerShell. I do have a custom script displayed right there, and trust me, making sense out of it will take a little bit of time. It's not that easy to onboard users using PowerShell, because many of the administrators that I have met across the globe, they've had a very difficult time with PowerShell. Because with PowerShell, of course, you get the bulk user experience, but even more, you get the horrid experience, because all it says is either the script ran successfully or it failed. It does not tell you where the script terminated so that you could go back and look into the specific script. It just lets you get lost in the wild, and you need to retrace this again and again, which in turn would take a lot of time. This is just creating users in on-premise Active Directory. Okay. So what are the limitations in managing 80 users? The Microsoft way is, of course, bulk user modification. PowerShell is the only answer. Very powerful, but no graphical user interface where you could go ahead and do it straight off from the portal. No configuration, no reporting, no verification, and of course, in case if there is something that goes wrong, it could take few hours to recover as well. Okay. So this is with the Microsoft. We've spoken about the single user. We've spoken about the bulk, and the exact piece that is missing out right here is they do not give you any kind of a template, or they do not give you any, of course, through the PowerShell you invoke a script and a CSV file too, but there is no custom template or automation where you could go about onboarding users in native Active Directory. So let's move into Office 365 user onboarding. A very similar experience, but except the fact that this is in the cloud, and that's on the on-premise. As my screenshot depicts, you've got the user creation model right here. You just type the first name. You could create one user at a time. You could do bulk. You could add more users at a time too. But when you talk about Office 365, the process is kind of different, because here you just type the first name, the username, and the location is very, very important. The passwords could be auto-generated, which is a new feature which your native Active Directory on-premise does not have. It just allows you to type a password. There is no random generated passwords in native AD. And then you could associate the license right here. And once the user has been created, you would see this dialog box right here. So the user has been successfully created. So this is one user at a time. The bulk is absolutely available, where you could go ahead and use a CSV file. But there are some limitations too when you jump into the Office 365 model for bulk users. The answer again is PowerShell or a CSV file based, but you need to pay real attention to the CSV file, as all the details need to be filled on the very same CSV file. Okay, there is no template options, just like the native Active Directory, on-premise Active Directory to be precise, and there is no customized license mapping. When I say customized license mapping, you might have 100 users joining the Office 365 environment every day, but when you do it in bulk, you got to go with a specified set of license mapping, generic one. You cannot go into the granular kind of, for instance, if this user joining the sales team, he needs to have a specific Skype for Business. This user joining the finance team needs to have the E2 plan. So you cannot granulate the license model, but you need to go into a generic stereotype license mapping. And then jumping on to a key point, Microsoft Office 365 Management Portal limits the number of users that can be managed simultaneously. I know most of you all would have experienced this, be it onboarding, be it modification. There is a limitation on the number of objects that can be managed simultaneously. It provides no support for CSV-based bulk user modification. Okay, there is no CSV based bulk user modification in Office 365, and which ultimately gives you the result that IT admins have to depend on partial, which makes things even more complicated. Now you have two separate platforms, the native, you've got the Office 365, but you are talking about the same users, the identity are same, except that the platforms are different. So look at the hassles that you need to undergo in order to manage the same amount of users but on a different platform. Next, jumping on to the Office 365 license management. Like my previous slide did mention about no granularity, this slide will give you, will drive home the message even more better, where you could first, when you onboard users in Office 365 one at a time, you definitely get the granularity. But with the so much of time constraint and this real-time environment that we are all playing with, you need to stay on top of your concerns. So with that being said, when you bulk import users in Office 365, only selective or a common license mapping can be done. No granular license mapping can be penetrated when you import users using a CSV and a bulk operation is done in Office 365 environment. Okay, so that is a kind of a major limitation because you need to go back and rework your license mapping. And why is license management so very important in Office 365? Unlike in native Active Directory, of course, you play with permissions. Of course, you have Exchange, you have Link, you have Terminal Service, you have Skype for Business, so on and so forth. I'm talking about your on-premise Active Directory. You write, you inscribe every single attribute, you give them respective permissions, you set permissions for home folders, profile paths, and you give them the respective NTFS permissions by setting in the right ACL, ACEs, so that it is happening on your on-premise within your four walls. But what is so different about Office 365 is this is on the cloud. And of course, you onboard the user, but that is just not sufficient. Just like how important a name is for a user, the license is also very, very important because it is with the license they get their rights to access the specific programs in the platform. For instance, if you want them to have the Microsoft Office version, if you want them to do the Skype for Business, if you want them to do Excel or whatever be it, you could just drill down, and based on the license is when and how a user can get access to the Office 365 platform. So the granularity is very, very important, which in my opinion is not available on the bulk side. So now we have seen so far, just a quick recap, we've got users in native Active Directory, single, multiple mode, and then onto the Office 365 single, multiple mode, and then we've seen the license management. So of course, as I had mentioned, I would be touching on the modification too. Just to retouch on keywords which I had mentioned earlier. in native on-premise Active Directory, there is no templates. So you need to go ahead and believe partial in order to do anything in bulk, be it onboard, be it modification, be it deletion. You need to go ahead and specify uh, a script, in fact write a script, and of course you could go ahead and select them and you could wipe them off, but that will be covered in the next section. But the modification piece, you need to trust the partial in order to go ahead and edit or just touch a specific attribute. This is a native Active Directory. When you touch about the modification in Office 365, of course they give you the opportunity to edit one user at a time, and of course you can choose bulk, but that is not very effective because you need to inscribe, you need to be really powerful, and it does not give you a CSV based modification approach. It does not give you a CSV based modification approach in Office 365 environment. So jumping forward, you have the password boost, because this slide would help you understand this segment better. The reason why I have a separate section for password boost is admins across the globe would put their hands down saying you might receive about close to 10 to 15 calls a day about password resets and unlock issues. Just imagine this particular scenario. You have your on-premise Active Directory, and it's just one platform. You just have your on-premise Active Directory, and about 20 to 30% call for password related concerns. Now you have two platforms, the same amount of users. So shouldn't the passwords be talking the same? Shouldn't there be an easy way where you could streamline this process? But unfortunately, the limitations are as follows. The same amount of users, the password get hashed, they get first validated on your on-premise Active Directory, and of course, through the extra security, it goes into the Azure Active Directory, okay, through to your Office 365 portal. But with humans, we tend to forget. If it's just with just Active Directory, we keep giving admins the calls, or the admins keep receiving calls, but we tend to forget and forgive, period. And about 20 to 30% of users have password related problems. This is across both the platforms, which when you constitute and you do the math, you get about close to 15 calls a day minimum, and even stats say that a particular call has lasted even for 45 minutes. So when you have two platforms in place, you need to have separate consoles for password management. So if it's the same user, Harish, I need to change password in the native on-premise Active Directory, and I need to jump into the Office 365 portal to change my password again, because there is no sync. In case if you have the passwords needs to be changed on two separate consoles. And something that is missing in today's world is there is no mobile apps for domain users, and so they will not be able to reset or change their password on the go, which is a very belittling factor, because because everybody wants an app these days, because people travel, mobility is the order of the day, but both on-premise and Office 365 do not provide mobile apps for password related concerns, so which in my opinion the password rules still get not very easy. They get difficult as day progresses. So we've created we've spoken about onboarding, we've talked about modification, be it a native, active, on-premise, and Office 365 license management, password issues, and now coming into the deprovisioning part, which is very important, as similar to the onboarding piece, because security is maintained. The 101 is onboarding, and in my opinion, the 201 is the modification, and the 301 is the deprovisioning. When you have a super duper deprovisioning process, that is when you have one of the clean, mean environment. Of course, now you have two separate platforms to look into, so you need to be double cautious so that duplicates do not exist, or in case if there is a stale account which is just sitting in the corner and just giving you a slip. The Microsoft deprovisioning AD users. This is the native on-premise AD. So single user, you right click and you delete. Of course, everybody would have done this. Then multiple users, you control each user and right click delete. Piece of cake. But when you want to automate the user deletion process, of course, there's always an answer, which is partial, and it does not tell you where the error occurred. Okay, this is on your native Active Directory site, on-premise. On the Office 365 deprovisioning users, of course, they bring in two concepts, which is soft delete and hard delete. The soft delete is it disables the user, it removes the license, and it retains the data. So you've got the soft delete and the hard delete. The soft delete is it disables the user, removes the license, and retains data. The hard delete is the soft delete after 30 days moves into the hard delete where the entire data gets wiped out, but this cannot be explicitly done. So you need to soft delete, and after days is when you could hard delete the user. There is no CSV based approach, but hang on, I think the volume seems to be a big problem right now. But it says I'm connected, so can you just quickly check if it's okay? I'm sorry, I mean, my system is showing good, but I'm not, but my colleague just mentioned that the voice just cut off suddenly. So just give me a quick second, okay? Just a quick second. I mean, the volume is a problem right now because, let me see. You can hear me now. I mean, it's better. I mean, I'm not doing anything different right now, so surprising. Is it better now? I hope it's better. Can you guys hear me? Okay, I mean, hang on. Check. I mean, is it better now? Okay. Sweet. Thank you. I mean, the users are able to hear me. It's just that my colleague's machine has been messed up right now. So use case again for us. Thank you. So with that being said, there's no CSV based approach, but user objects can be selected. Let's just jump back again. So you could go ahead and check this Office 365 deprovisioning, the soft delete and the hard delete, but the hard delete cannot be explicitly done. Last but not the least is how could all the problems that I'd mentioned so far, I would not call it problems, I would call them limitations. How could 8360 solution from Manage Engine solve all this equation for you is through this approach. I know this is kind of a monster approach, but I just wanted to let you all know that all the limitations that I so pointed out right now, this tool can handle it for you. And what does this tool do? It encompasses quite a few products put together. Starting with, you could manage and report on-premise Active Directory, Exchange, link, permissions, and more. You could play with Office 365 management and reports. Then you've got a tool that will specifically take care of your customizable, secure self-service password management. When I say secure self-service password management, your on-premise and Office 365 passwords can be synced. So a two-step process is being broken into one right now. This, in my opinion, is a game changer. Okay, and then you've got the single sign-on. You've got more tools that look into real-time AD auditing. You've got the file integrity monitoring, Exchange auditing, but that's separate. But I just wanted to tell you what this tool is capable of. You get a free eval copy for the first 30 days. You've got automation plus workflow. You've got free mobile apps. You've got single console. You've got flexibility to choose what you basically need. This is all an admin would be looking out for. So the first limitations that we occurred was there was no template, but AD Manager in 8360 will give you that option where you can granularly onboard users in bulk. When I say granularly, you could play with the license mapping, and you could go ahead and inscribe all attributes, and everything can be done from one pane of glass. You got two platforms, but this tool would be sitting right in between, and this will be your to-go shop for Active Directory and Office 365. No more remote sessions, no more taking into the consoles. It is just the 8360 portal, which will give you access to your on-premise Active Directory and your Office 365 straight. So the first limitations was template, but this tool will give you a template option both for user onboarding and for modification. You can use it one at a time. You could do it bulk at a time. You could go ahead and automate user onboarding. When I say user onboarding, it is valid in Active Directory and it is valid in Office 365 with license mapping. And just another point on the license management. Through the license management, you can enable a mailbox. So when you have Exchange Online, when you enable it as a part of the license, we would be able to enable the mailbox too. So you create users in AD, you create users in Office 365, you associate license, and through the license you enable the mailbox in Office 365, and all this done at one shot. I mean, you could do it in bulk, you could automate these tasks, and all this can be done from the AD Manager Plus component in 8360. And that will give you detailed reports as well. So you want to check whether every single process has happened the way it should be. So you could go ahead and download 8360, and the AD Self-Service Plus piece is the customizable secure self-service password management, where you could go ahead and same amount of users, you could go ahead and give them a URL. They would be able to change password, reset their own password, unlock themselves, and perform self-update. But with the password synchronization feature, admins just have to configure it once, and people would be able to change password and reset password straight out of AD Self-Service Plus, which in turn would talk to your Active Directory and to your Office 365. It'll be the same password. Of course, we do have real-time agents which would push the password across to platforms so that there is no latency, which the same password they would be able to log in with just a few seconds. You've got free mobile apps both for AD Manager and for AD Self-Service, which is all a part of 8360, and people can literally reset and unlock themselves, be it on-premise, and they would be able to reset and change password in Office 365. You've got single sign-on case happening in 8360. You've got the automation plus workflow. It's a single pane of glass. But the specialty about 8360 is you don't have to get worried if you have multiple tools which are not of importance to you, but you can just handpick a selective tools, in which case the use case which I narrated right from the beginning to the end is user on-premise Active Directory management and Office 365, which in my opinion the AD Manager and AD Self-Service Plus put together will help you out. So that could be integrated together in AD 360, and the tool will work like a charm. So this will erase off all the limitations that I had put across on every single segment, and this tool is something that everybody must try. So don't even worry about moving into the next page, but I just want you all to test this tool and get back to me for possible results. And this is how the 8360 tool would welcome you for the very first time. When you install the product, it's lightning quick. It sits within your four walls. You can configure it to the respective database. We come in with the PostgreSQL, so you could go ahead and configure them to respective database. It's a web-based tool, and this is how the UI would look. Straight. You've got AD Manager, you've got AD Audit, AD Self-Service, Exchange Reporter Plus, but all you don't have to install all the products on the same machine. The products could sit anywhere wide apart, but you could go ahead and configure them. You could reunite them. All I need is the URL and the machine where they've been sitting, and I can configure and talk to the respective machines and collect information. You've got AD Manager, AD Audit, AD Self-Service Plus, and Exchange Reporter Plus. And in case if you want these tools to work as a standalone, that is also possible. That is also very much possible. So you could go ahead and either integrate them together under 8360 and have it as a one pane of glass, or if you want to integrate them but yet have the standalone approach, that is also very much possible. So you just jump into the respective products, get the job done, and you're pretty much done your use case. All right, so that pretty much sums up the webinar. I wanted to keep it light. I wanted to keep it just for 30 minutes because I know you all would be very busy, and I would be more than happy to take any questions in the chat. I mean, I'm just browsing through to see any questions that have come through your way. So let me just read it out for you. Perfect. Of course, the question was, what does the interface look like? And of course, I did show it to you right here. This is how the interface would look. So this will be in between your Active Directory. Any machine on the domain. It does not have to be on a domain controller. Just a file server would suffice, or a member server, and people can access it on the go using a web browser anywhere across the domain, or you can host the product, and this would be done accordingly. So with that being said, you could go ahead and write back to me for any questions. I do see that many of you wanted to get in touch with me. I would appreciate, that's my email address right there. That's harry@manageengine.com, a long promise right before I initiated the session. So what I would be more happy to receive is, of course, your feedback. Please do write it. If it's good, neglect it. If it's bad, please do write, because that is something that I constantly engage myself with, because that's how you shape moving forward. And of course, in case if you have something on your environment, please do drop a line, and I would love to get on a call and challenge your requirement with the tools that I have faced across the years and see how best things can work for you. So I would be looking forward to all your questions. That is my email address. Of course, I did receive a few more questions right here. Of course, we would send you the email. We would email you the slides, and please just drop an email too. That will work out faster. I can just go ahead and send it to you right away. Just drop an email to me, and of course, a line or two about how this session has progressed. In case if you'd want it to be a bit more longer, just write to me on specific aspects, and I would definitely work on the next webinar series that I'm planning, and which should be on the Office 365 side. But at the moment, I will let you all, for the rest of the day. Thank you so much for joining. My name is Harish, and that's my email address. I would be, expecting all your questions, and thank you so much for joining this webinar. Thank you, and a very good afternoon. Cheers.